All right, here we go. This is the Individual Skills Hockey Podcast. I'm Miles Deeth, assistant coach at Wayzata High School and director of hockey operations at Wayzata Youth Hockey Association. So starting this year, I wanted to create a new award for our Wayzata youth coaches that highlighted some of the best coaches that we have, because in the past, some of our feedback from parents has been on the negative side of coaches with our parent surveys. So I wanted to create an award to highlight these coaches. It's going to be in 3 categories this year. One's going to be a Mite, 6U, 8U Coach of the Year. There's going to be a Travel Coach of the Year, and then there's going to be a Girls Travel Coach of the Year as well. So with overwhelming support on the Mite side, Chris Harrington is going to be our Mite Coach of the Year for the 2024 season. Chris is in his 5th year coaching at every single level now, with his oldest being a last year of advanced Mites at Wayzata. He's got a couple other kids playing as well. So if you're at a Mite practice, you'll probably see Chris either there or on the ice after or before you. And to me, Chris embodies everything we want our Mite coaches to be. He understands the priority number 1 is having fun. He also understands that bringing high energy is going to signal to the kids that their coach cares about them, but he brings high energy in a very positive way. And I've been on the ice with him a lot over the last couple of years, and I can say firsthand that he is one of the best to do it at the Mite level. And he also had a tremendous hockey career. He was a standout at St. Cloud Apollo High School, went on to play at the University of Minnesota, played in the Toronto Maple Leafs organization, and then played overseas and actually in Asia to wrap up his pro career. And with all that hockey knowledge, he brings it obviously to the kids, but I think more importantly, he brings it to the coaches as well that might not have that experience as a player. So he does a great job of training the coaches that want to be trained and kind of throwing them into the fire when he thinks that they're ready. And in turn, if you look back to some of the coaches that he coached his first year with in mini Mites, they're fantastic coaches now 4 to 5 years later. And I think that's largely due to Chris's help and effort in training those coaches. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. We're going to talk about what he does, kind of his philosophies on Mite development, and kind of best practices that he thinks we should be doing more of, what we should be kind of trying to avoid in building a really successful Mite program at Wayzata. So again, I hope you really enjoy this episode. It was a lot of fun to sit down and talk with Chris. And if you have any questions, please reach out. But that's it. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. All right, welcome in. This is episode 19 of the Individual Skills Hockey Podcast, and thank you for listening so far. It's been really fun. I've gotten a lot of good comments and feedback for the podcast. I'm not sure what the plan is moving into the spring here, whether we'll do a season break or not, but for this week, we had a really special guest that we're lucky enough to have in. His name's Chris Harrington. Chris, how you doing today? And thanks for being here.
Thanks, Miles. I'm doing good.
All right, so Chris is a Mite coach extraordinaire in the Wayzata Youth Hockey Association. We were just talking before we hit record. He's got a son that's last year Mites this year, so he's been coaching for 5 years, and he also has 2 other kids at lower levels. So he's somewhat of an expert at this point, always learning. But so that's what's going to be the topic of this episode, all things Mite development and what works, what doesn't, and all that good stuff. But first, I want to just get a little bit of intro on you, Chris, where you grew up, how you got into the game, and what made you want to start coaching.
Yep, sure, thanks. So yeah, I grew up in St. Cloud, and a hockey family, more or less. My dad coached for 40 years, actually just retired on Monday from coaching. So I've just been around it all the time growing up, whether it's in locker rooms, on the road watching games, my dad taking me on recruiting trips to go see, high school or junior hockey games, and just always been around hockey growing up. Played in St. Cloud in the youth program all the way up. Played at St. Cloud Apollo in high school. Then after that, played 2 years of juniors in Omaha with the Lancers in the USHL. And then from there, was lucky enough to play at the University of Minnesota for 4 years. And then after I graduated from Minnesota, played 7 years professionally. So 2 in Toronto with the Maple Leafs organization, and then went overseas and played in Germany for 2 years, and then finished up 3 years in Japan. So just a lot of, obviously being around my dad a lot, and just being around the rink and watching him, how he coaches, and kind of what I've picked up on there, and just always being around coaches all the time. It's definitely, you just kind of pick up things that maybe you don't even realize you're picking up. And once I was done playing, and our family, we started our making our family, or having a family, obviously it was natural for me to want to do the same for my children, like my dad did for me, and kind of give back, to the association and in the community from a coaching standpoint. I mean, I coach not only hockey, but whatever our kids are playing, I'm coaching, whether it's my 2 sons or my daughter. I just like to be on the field, and not saying I know everything about every sport that they play, but more or less just being out there and providing support for kids and making sure they're having fun.
Yeah. So when you were done playing, did you move right back into this community and to, like you said, get that family started?
Yep. So when I retired from hockey, my wife Megan and I, we were living in Golden Valley, and then once we had Mac, our first, and boxes started stacking, up to the ceiling with kid stuff and all of that, we figured we needed to move to a little bigger of a spot. So we moved out to Plymouth, and we've been here ever since.
Awesome. All right, so we can get into the hockey stuff. You've, for the past couple years, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, you've served on the Mite Player Development Committee, and they've done a really good job of kind of developing this development plan throughout your whole 5 years of Mites, I would say.
Yep.
So kind of take us through just starting out, what the kids need to be doing, kind of what that progression looks like going through mini, rookie, intermediate, and then finally advanced Mites.
Yeah, so I think it was Joe Motzko, Corey LaRose, and maybe Lawrence Nicollet. They're kind of the first ones to start that player development kind of committee. And I think they've done a great job, whether it is from helping coaches develop in terms of how to coach at the various levels. I think the practice plans that they have at each level, from minis all the way up through advanced, is fantastic. It provides great direction to coaches, and whether it's a coach that has been playing hockey for 20 years or someone that's brand new to the game and just wants to be involved, right? I think I think they've done a good job of laying those out and progressing those out, through the year. So,
right, because that can be pretty intimidating for somebody with not as much experience. Even if you played like throughout high school and you've never coached before, that's overwhelming without those resources.
Oh, no question. I mean, and there's times, throughout the season this past or this past year, or even in previous seasons, right, where I'd be looking at other coaches, right, who have had just as much experience, if not more, and saying, oh man, what should we do today? We got to do a little bit something different, and we're spitballing ideas, and struggling to come up with a plan for an hour. I can only imagine what it would be like for someone who has no idea of of how to run a practice. So they've done a great job with that. Obviously, you're trying to teach different things at every level, and we can get into that, at any point.
So like, what are the main areas of focus for, like, let's say mini and rookie, just to start off?
So mini is great, and we just got done with my daughter, who is a mini mite this year. I mean, number one, right? Just making sure they have fun. You want to have them keep coming back every day, right? You want to have a smile on their face. It is actually my favorite level to coach. I love it. I think the kids are great. They're new. They're excited. It's something new. They might be scared. They might be crying. Kids are, having a ball. They're saying funny things. You're having fun conversation. You get to do fun stations with them, and just make sure they're having fun. And they don't even really notice that they're getting better. You know what I mean? Like, they're improving because they're having so much fun, right? So whether it's just working on, I don't know, it could be something as simple as standing and walking on the ice, right? Like, that's what I do with a lot of our kids that are first-time skaters, or who have never played before. Okay, they have a hard time even standing up on the ice. Okay, number one, let's just walk like an airplane or walk like a Frankenstein, right? And just get comfortable moving on the ice on basically, 2 butter knives, right? Trying to balance on that.
Yeah.
Falling down, okay, it's okay to fall. You're not going to get hurt. It's okay. You have pads, and then understanding how to get from being on the ice to getting up back onto your skates, because they got to do that. I mean, they almost do that once a minute, right? Especially the beginning.
All the way up until they're 18 years old and they're done.
Right.
So at our Mite coaches meeting, you said something pretty interesting that I remember. When you're starting out with the mini mites, I believe you do no sticks for a period of time.
Yeah.
And I know that's been met with a little bit of pushback, or misunderstanding of why. So just explain the no sticks thing, just when you're starting out.
Yeah, we did that the first time I remember. It was actually when Mac was a mini mite, because I remember Corey LaRose. We kind of struggled at the beginning with the kids because they just weren't moving, right? They were just leaning on their sticks. They're using it as a crutch. They were bending over too much. They weren't really getting any better at skating fundamentals as much as a mini mite can.
Right.
So I think Corey made the suggestion of let's take their sticks away, so they just work on some balance, some basic fundamentals of balance and skating and posture. So we took those away for a good month, and it was unbelievable night and day how much better they got, because they didn't have anything to lean on, right?
Yeah.
So they had to learn how to balance and stand up straight and kind of walk and understand how to kind of bend their knees. And we started doing some drills where they had to pick cones up off the ice without falling over. So that was great. And if I coach mini mites, however, if I ever do it again or just come back and do it one time, that is definitely something that I would suggest to any mini mite level at the beginning of the year for a good month, if not longer. They're not going to miss out on, I don't know, an opportunity to play in the NHL because they're not using sticks for the first 2 months when they're 4 years old. Do you know what I mean?
And there's still an opportunity for fun. I mean, I can think of 50 games you can play without a stick. It was picking up garbage on the ice and putting it in a garbage bin, or like you said, the cone spins are a fun one too for the kids. But I was going to bring up, on one of our early episodes, we had Barry Carnan, who's a NHL skating coach, and he said the worst thing you can do when you're working on edge control, even if you're in the NHL and you're Sidney Crosby, is to have 2 hands on your stick, because you're using it as a balance point,
right,
when you should be able to balance on your blades.
Right. And that's what they would do. They would just lean forward with 2 hands on their stick and use it as kind of like their, almost like a third leg, right? Where they're just like leaning over, and the next thing you know, they're staring at the ice and they're not up, and it just creates bad habits. So yeah, we've done that in the 3 times that I've coached mini mites, and I think it's worked great. To your point, maybe there's a misunderstanding in terms of why we're doing it. And you know what? You just have to be confident in the reasons why we're doing it. And as long as your coaches, and the parents on your team are on board and understanding, and you just have to communicate it. These are the reasons why we're doing this. They'll have sticks at some point, and there's varying levels of ability in mini mites, right? There's kids that have never played the game before, and there's kids that can whip around pretty quickly, right? And those are the kids, and typically the families that want to get sticks in their hands quicker because they're ready for that next stage of development. But you got to understand that you're trying to coach every single kid on the ice at once.
Yeah.
In my opinion, having no sticks for as long as holding off for as long as possible is beneficial for them moving forward.
So you talk about the next stage of development, getting into rookie and maybe some intermediate stuff.
Yep.
What are the big things there that you should be focusing on?
I would say continuing. The number one thing is skating. Making sure they keep developing as a skater. It's hard to play hockey if you're not a good skater. It's hard to continue to move up, in your move up levels.
Yeah.
If you're not a good skater, you need to be up to speed, I guess, with everyone else. So definitely work on skating all the time. I know when I'm leading practices, I try and dedicate a good 15 to 20 minutes at the beginning of every practice to teach edges or power skating or some type of overspeed. just to get them more comfortable and have them become a little bit better at skating every time. Now it's a steep learning curve for some. I also think that pushing them and maybe doing some things that are uncomfortable to them right away, like even backward skating. And I'm not saying we should do backward skating every single day at like a rookie mite level.
Yeah.
But just so they can learn, like, hey, this is what backward skating is, and at some point I'm gonna have to do it. And here's the fundamentals. I can't be leaning on my stick with two hands skating backwards. And I would say skating is the biggest thing, and that will continue to do that. I'll continue to do that as long as I'm coaching.
Yeah. So what have you found is the best way for kids to pay attention and be engaged when working on skating?
Yeah.
Is it the old school line skating? Is it a group of 5 to 6 kids in station work? Or what have you found success with?
I think a combination, actually, if I'm being honest with you, like mixing it up, not doing the same thing every single day for 6 months, maybe one day, working with the other coaches that we're with on the ice that weekend. Okay, one day we'll just do line skating and work on strides, or work on our outside and inside edges, or work on our stopping and starting, just straight down the ice. Maybe the next day it's going around some tires, or going around cones or circles and working on our edges and crossovers, change of direction. Maybe put a puck on their stick too, right? And have them work on skating down the ice with stick handling a puck. So I think having a mix of having a variety of drills that you can do from a skating standpoint keeps kids engaged, number one, because it's newer to them. It's something different than they did the day before. And you're working on different components of skating.
Yeah, so we talk about the staying engaged and paying attention, and I know from my experience, and you can disagree with this kind of take, but when I would run mite sessions a lot, I would be doing line skating with all the kids on the ice, and I found myself wasting a lot of the practice time in making sure every single player was listening to me.
Yeah.
So talk about strategies or kind of like your mindset in, well, the kids that are paying attention are getting better. The kids that aren't, and how do you kind of help them and not sacrifice the whole ice time for the kids?
Yeah, it's not especially when they're younger, right? Like at the advanced mite level, like where my oldest son plays. I mean, at that point they should be able to pay attention and kind of stay in line and follow the direction pretty good. When you obviously mini mites, I don't think we did any. Everyone was kind of skated together. When you get into rookie, and with my middle son who's an intermediate, right, you definitely see that some kids are really engaged and want to understand how to do the drill. Other kids, just have a hard time standing still, right? And they're kind of causing a ruckus in their line with everybody, right? It's kind of a domino effect. So number one, just making sure that all the other coaches on the ice know what their responsibility is in terms of making sure everyone's paying attention in their line. And it can be as simple as everyone take a line, everyone take a cone, and your job is to make sure that everyone is paying attention. That's as simple as you can get in order to make sure a line stays relatively uniform for the skating part of the practice. Other than that, right, like you can even break it up, like have 6 cones instead of 5, so there's not as many kids in line, so there's more, so they're not waiting as long.
Yep.
So the turnover is a bit quicker in terms of the repetitions that they're getting. Breaking them up into 3 zones and doing something like that. So there's little ways that you can do that to keep kids engaged. If I would do one thing, it would be making sure that there's just enough coaches that are understanding of what they need to do on the ice to help out.
Yeah. And we've talked about that a lot, having engaged assistant coaches, if you want to call it that, as far as someone leading the session is huge. All right, so finally, moving into advanced mites, just to kind of round this off, obviously skating is going to continue to be a big focus. What are some of the things that are added in those years with the advanced?
Yeah, we do. So this past year, we did a lot more in terms of overspeed, in terms of let's make sure we're going at top speed all the time, whether it's around a cone, whether it's straight line. Working on backwards. I think backwards is one of the most important things that you can learn as a young player. You have to be able to skate backwards, in my opinion, if you want to become a good skater. And it opens an opportunity for you, maybe later on down the line in terms of being a forward or being a D. I know that's what happened, with me was I was a forward all the way up until I think it was like my second year of Bantam. And I was a good backward skater, but my dad always made me practice, if I was practicing with his teams, or he had a week-long camp in St. Cloud in the summer, and I would join, and always working on backward skating. And I became a pretty decent backward skater, and it just opened up an opportunity for me to play defense.
Yeah.
And then from there, that's what I ended up playing, right? So I learned offensive skills playing forward all the time, but you also have to learn how to play defense and learn those defensive skills. So we did a lot of that, both forwards and backwards, working on our edges, working on going as fast as we can with the puck as well as without the puck. I think that's just important. I mean, I know a lot of kids kind of slow down once they get a puck on their stick, but I mean, that's the point where that's where you have to be going your fastest, because everyone's trying to chase you down at that point. So we're making sure we're comfortable with a puck on our stick and still being able to go as fast as we can, whether around edge, around circles or around tires. So we did a lot of that this year. There's a great drill that was part of the warm-ups at Advanced Mites. It was kind of a three tire drill where they go up around a tire, back down, and just do a lot of tight turns and just a lot of edge work. In my opinion, that one is fantastic, particularly for skaters that are not as strong on their edges, because it forces them to learn how to turn tight on their edges and use both edges at the same time without putting a heel up and kind of using their toe like a figure skater.
Yeah,
so we did that one quite a bit. And, I think the kids at the Advanced Mite level got a lot better at skating by the end of the year because of some of those kind of drills we did at the beginning.
So what about some things maybe added in apart from skating? So we're talking stick handling, passing, shooting now. What is your opinion on actually teaching technically how to shoot, how to pass, and how to stick handle? Are they ready for that type of technical instruction on the stick skills, I'd say?
Definitely, I think stick handling, or at least handling a puck or understanding how to handle a puck. Shooting, I would say probably they need to start at some point, particularly the second year Advanced Mites that are now going into squirts. Mm-hmm. Should probably, have a basic understanding of how to shoot a wrist shot.
Yeah.
Passing, you could say yes, I guess, and just like the basic fundamentals of looking at the target, make sure the other player has a stick on the ice and stick out, and you're kind of, following through to your target and not slapping at it. But passing is one of those things I feel where it almost just comes with experience and learning, okay, I can't carry the puck anymore without someone catching up to me, so I better learn how to move it and get my head up and pass it to a teammate.
Yeah, and obviously, how do we do that? We play a lot of 2-on-2 games or like 3-on-3 cross ice like we talked about. So just doing it is going to lead to getting better at it. And I would say the same thing about shooting. I tell squirts all the way up to Bantams at our Monday night skills, like, what's the best way to shoot it harder is to shoot more pucks.
Yep.
And you will sort of figure out. And when you get up to the higher levels, like high, maybe there's something actually really technically wrong in your shot that can allow you to get it off faster or harder. But I think at this age, like, they'll start to figure that out the more pucks they shoot.
Yeah. And when we do like small games or small area games and there'd be an open neutral zone or something like that, we'd have coaches that would help bring kids in, and just call them in from the game and have them shoot a handful of pucks just to kind of keep teaching them the fundamentals of it. I will say, every time that I did that, it was interesting because every kid just wanted to see how high they could shoot it, right? It was like, how high can I get this puck? Because I want to shoot it in the upper corner.
Yeah.
Well, sure, At some point down the road, yes, you're going to learn to be able to shoot it higher. Let's just try and shoot it through the net. You know, like how hard can you shoot it? Try and shoot it through the net, not over the net, you know? So it was in teaching the wrist roll and how to, you know, and how to snap your wrists. And there's a lot of technique, I think, that goes in, and maybe some kids just aren't strong enough for it yet. But to have them start slicing at the puck all the time because they just want to get it in the air probably actually makes it harder for them to shoot a puck than it would to help them.
I think that's where the mini nets can come in and play a big role because, like, when you think about it, a kid that is, for those listening, I mean, short, and you're talking about an NHL-sized net, that's, I mean, if you compare it to a 6-foot-tall guy, I mean, he's trying to shoot the puck 13 feet in the air. It's like, like that mini net, if you can just teach him to put it through the back of the net, like you said, I think that'd be good. So all right, so that's kind of the whole process with the different ages. I have some more questions here on, so let's start with what have you realized doesn't work well for mites as far as getting better? What are some of the things to avoid as a mite coach?
I think one of the things that I wouldn't say avoid it, but I would say minimize it at all costs would be playing too many full ice games. I really do. And I understand that that's hockey at the end of the day. And at some point they do have to learn how to play a full 200-foot game with offside. But in my experience and what I watched, particularly with our advanced mites this year, they were better at understanding the game in terms of skating fast, thinking fast, and moving the puck fast when they had to play in a smaller area because there wasn't much time for them to move. So we do like a 4-on-4 in the neutral zone or a 3-on-3 coach pass to change possession or even just a cross ice. They had to learn, I have to use my teammates with the understanding that, you know what, my teammate's probably going to get harassed by the other team at some point, and I might get the puck back. I think that's, and we talked about it earlier, that's one of the things where kids have a harder time passing at the full ice level is because they're like, I don't want to pass to a teammate because I'm not going to get it back, you know? Right. And
in my 1 minute shift.
If I let go of the puck, I'll never get it back. Now, I will say that I tell all the kids that we play, that on my team or that we played against, it's okay to try and carry the puck because that's how you work on puck skills. And it's okay to turn it over. Like, there's no problem with that. I'd rather have you try and make a play and turn it over than to just have the puck on your stick and just throw it blindly down the ice. That does nothing, right? Mm-hmm. So in that regard, it's kind of good for them to be able to handle the puck a little bit more. But from a development standpoint, or what I don't think works well, in my opinion, is just playing full ice games all the time. I think at some points it's kind of fun, you know, and kind of different. And they do need to learn how to navigate their way around a 200-foot ice sheet in terms of offsides and learning that rule. But small area games is still something that I think is the best thing for the development at the mite level.
Well, you brought up just kind of throwing the puck because they don't know what to do with it and how we should be discouraging that. But I think there's an opportunity there of creating a 3-on-2 game or a 2-on-1 game or a 3-on-1 game to where you do have a little bit of time for a kid to look up and be like, I'm going to find the open man, and I'm not so overwhelmed with all these kids skating at me that every single time I'm just going to chuck it. Right.
No, that's a great idea. Kind of an odd man situation, and I actually think it would probably benefit the defensive players as well in understanding how to play defense and
not just skate straight at somebody and take a swipe
straight at somebody, or just keep skating backwards into your own crease. You know, without challenging the player with the puck. You know what I mean? So that's a good idea. I would definitely think that is something that maybe we could use next year at the advanced mite level, and maybe a little bit. I don't know, maybe intermediates. There's such a wide discrepancy in terms of ability, even at the intermediate mite level, but definitely at the advanced mite level for sure.
Yeah, and then I think the last thing on the full ice game thing that I wanted to ask you is, I think a lot of people get nervous about not learning positions and not learning positioning. What's your opinion on that? Do 8 and 9-year-olds need to understand what a defenseman's supposed to do in a full ice game, or what do you think?
I think they should understand the basics of it in terms of, okay, your first job is to make sure that you're defending the other team from scoring a goal. And that means that you're making sure everyone stays in front of you. You're not letting anyone behind you. If you're in the offensive zone and someone's in the, understanding where you are in front on the ice and making sure you keep everyone in front of you, understanding how to get to the blue line on the offensive zone and stay there, I guess, to make sure the puck doesn't come out for an offsides. I know. After that, just let them play. Like, just let them figure it out. And they might make 1,000 mistakes as they go through that.
Yeah.
But maybe that next time something clicks and they understand it, and then they're able to keep developing. I think once you start going too in depth with kids that are 7, 8, and 9 years old, they stop playing because all they're doing is thinking. And they stop moving their feet, and they stop moving the puck, and they don't want to go get the puck because they're too concerned about leaving the front of the net, which is almost comical, right? If a kid, he shouldn't really have any idea of staying in front of the net. He should be like, I want to go get the puck, So I think if you teach them too many things in terms of being technical as a player or a position, they just forget that they're just playing, and just let them develop and kind of let them learn.
Yeah. So I rag on full ice games all the time, and I don't want to be so negative on it that I think it should never take place, because I do think, like we just talking about now, there is some things to learn on basic positioning, but I think you have to understand that when you're doing that, that's what you're working on. And you have to understand that you're not working on skill development at that point, because they're not going to really get the puck in a full ice game at this age. So, all right, so what's the ideal practice length, you think? What has worked well? Is it 45? Is it 60? Is it 75? I don't know if you have any 75s this year, but...
No, that'd be long. So obviously for mini mites, I think 45 minutes is probably perfect for mini mites. As you get into the rookie, intermediate, and advanced, I think an hour for a regular practice. So you can do 20 minutes of skating, maybe get into 15 or 20 minutes of station work, maybe 20 minutes, and then play some small area games or a neutral zone game for the last 20. I think that's a perfect breakout for the other 3 levels. Competition night or the skills night that we did, I think 45 minutes is perfect.
Yeah,
I really do. When we're doing scrimmages against other associations, like the shared ice, I think it was an hour, and I think that was good.
Yeah.
I think that was good. Particularly because we have a lot of kids on each team, and a lot of them are kind of on the bench, right? Even if you do 4-on-4,
right.
We had 12 kids on the bench, right? So they're sitting for a long time. So to have an hour at least gives them a couple, 2-3 extra shifts.
Yeah, the thing I noticed this year, especially with the Wednesday night skill nights, is on the 45 minutes, a lot of kids would come up to me with like 5 minutes to go, like when they could tell I'm starting to wrap it up, and they're like, "We're done already."
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good thing, because they're gonna want to come back next time because they felt like they wanted more.
It's something new. It's something different than what they're used to, right?
Yeah.
They're used to the same people running practice every single day. So like I was mentioning before, if you could create variety and mix it up, and it can go, and that goes for a regular practice plan. There's times in middle of the year or kind of towards the end of the year where everyone just is like, we need to do something else. Let's just change it up. We can deviate from the plan a little bit and just play some games. And I think the same thing can be said about, obviously the competition night, right, is one thing because it's just a game and they love that. But even the skills night where you're working on different things. And I know you guys did a lot of skating at the beginning, which, shoot, you could probably just do that for 45 straight minutes, right, and make it beneficial for the kids. But then some other, puck handling or skill development things with the puck or shooting. So just having different things for the kids, and it really piques their interest and keeps their brain and keeps their concentration moving in the right direction. I think it's good for them.
Yeah. All right. So one more question on, I guess, what's your advice for a coach that we mentioned it earlier, that's a little bit nervous about getting into it? How do those coaches, A, get better, and B, what would you tell them as far as like recruiting them to get involved?
Yeah, so what I try to do when I know I have some coaches who are newer or maybe not as experienced in either coaching or hockey in particular, is making sure that I put them in stations with coaches that do have the experience so they can learn how stations are run, number one, and number two, what their station is that they're learning. So that's one of the biggest things. Number two, I always try, particularly with the other head coaches that I work with, and I'm not saying I'm like the master practice runner, but I just have had a lot of experience, whether watching my dad run a practice for however long, or now me in my 5 years. Letting the other head coaches, I'd say running, particularly I did this at the mini mite level this year, is just running the practices for the first month of the year. And I'm completely fine with that. I love it. It's great. And just letting the other head coaches see how it's run and maybe get some ideas on how they could run the beginning of the practice. And then just saying, you know what, guys, training wheels are off. Here we go. Like, does anyone want a shot? Want to take a try at it? And a lot of them do raise their hands, right? So you can tell that they do want to be more involved, but maybe they just don't know how to do it, or just a little bit reluctant to, thinking that they'll make a mistake. And it's impossible to make a mistake. Yeah. Like, you can't make a mistake coaching, right? Like, number one, the kids don't know that the mistake is made, and I'm sure the parents don't really either, right? So you can't make a mistake coaching, or running a practice. So that's what I would say in terms of developing like a newer coach, just making sure they're in the right spot with the right people, and just explaining to them what their drill is, and maybe a couple talking points for their station, whether it's make sure they're going around the tires, and make sure they're going around the circle and not cutting a corner, or making sure they're, have their positioning right with their hands when they're shooting, something simple. B was, what was B?
Just what's your sales pitch to a coach, like on how, I don't know, rewarding it is, and just like why would a coach want to coach?
It's fun. I just think there's we're lucky in this association that there's a great quality of coach as well as quantity. There's a lot of good coaches that know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So it's easy. It should be easy for a coach who maybe doesn't have a lot of experience in the game, or doesn't think that they'd be able to contribute on the ice, to be able to just ease their way into it. And I've seen that with a handful of coaches since I started with my oldest at the mini mite level. I know there was a lot of coaches at that level that, could barely even stand up on their skates, if I'm being honest with you. Yeah. And I still see them 5 years later, and now they're running practices. You know what I mean? So I always joke, I'm like, man, your development has come a long way in the 5 years. You've come a long way. So,
well, that's just it. I remember as a full-time coach getting started with Pat and doing skill sessions, and you're kind of just sitting there watching him do everything. And then, like you said, one day it was training wheels are off, and it's like, at the end of the day, just jump in and do it. That's the way to get better, is reps of like actually doing something out there. So,
right.
All right, so let's hit on player retention again, just really quickly. In your experience, what are some of the reasons why a kid has a bad experience and maybe doesn't come back?
I don't. That's a hard one, right? Because I don't see that with I'm lucky enough where my kids do like coming to the rink, and they like wanting to play hockey every year. If I had to guess, I would say it's probably because there's a lack of games against maybe other associations, and I know there was more this year than there was in years past, or just in general seeing different jerseys. than the ones that we practice with, weekend in and weekend out, right? So being able to see different associations and going other places to play and having that change of scenery or something new for them, that's probably one thing, is just the lack of games compared to, probably AAA hockey or something where all they're doing is, I think, playing games. I don't know a lot about it, but maybe the grass is greener on the other side, or they think it is, and they just don't think.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting, the other jerseys point. And again, it doesn't have to be full ice games, right? Yep. I mean, it can be running a practice and doing cross ice games, but that's interesting. I mean, it's meet other kids and you actually there's a little bit of us versus them.
Yeah, and I know we've done
for the kids.
The shared scrimmage, right, where you'd have other and I think it's hard for our association, particularly at the advanced Mite level, because we have 12 teams. Yeah. And there's not a lot of other associations that have 12 teams, and you have to make sure everyone's playing the same number of scrimmages and games, and how do you coordinate that? So I know Maple Grove is one that we do quite a bit because they have a lot of teams, and it's great. It's fun. I think the kids enjoy it. It's a good atmosphere in there usually. I don't know. I've thought sometimes saying, well, maybe we don't even have to do just a shared scrimmage. Maybe we can just, we can practice with a Maple Grove team one time over there, and one of their teams could come over here. We could all practice together and then play 3-on-3 at each end, or 4-on-4 in the neutral zone, or just play small area games against another association.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a quote unquote scrimmage or a game. It can be just a shared practice at that point, but just have another color, it's almost like a NFL, like a training camp, like a inter squad, scrimmage.
On the flip side, besides the game thing, like you just mentioned, when do you notice that maybe your kids have the most fun and are the most engaged out there, a style of practice or a drill or anything?
Yeah. It's different at every level, right? For mini mites, it's just keeping it fun and making sure that our stations are fun and the coaches are engaged and they're smiling. If I think if the kids see the coaches smiling and laughing and having fun and joking around, then the kids are going to have fun and laugh and be on the ice with their friends and want to come back the next day. Obviously, snacks in the locker room after at the mini mite level is probably their main focus. So that'll keep them coming back the next day. But just making sure that they have a good experience on the ice in their 45 minutes and just have a lot of fun. And they'll improve just by the fact that they're having fun and they're coming back every day. When you get into rookie, intermediate, and advanced, again, it's high. I think it's high temp, making sure the coaches have high energy. I think that's not talked about maybe as much as it should be, is making sure the coaches have high energy so the kids can see that the coaches are really want to be out there and we're really trying to get better today and have fun at the same time, obviously, and joke around. We're out there to have fun, right? And make sure the kids have fun, and you're playing hockey, right? We're not working hockey. So, but as long as the coaches are there and the kids see that the coaches want to be there and have high energy, then the kids in turn will have high energy and want to be there and want to try hard. And they do for the most part. I mean, I can't say that I think every kid tries hard every practice. Like I mentioned before, changing it up or having a variety of drills to pique their interest. Maybe doing some changing around the practice plan, maybe starting with a scrimmage and then doing some skating and then drills at the end, and just kind of rotating how practice plans go. And again, that's just experience. Yeah. But that's just collaboration with all the other coaches on the ice too, right? And understanding, hey, let's try this today and let's do something a little different. So definitely,
you mentioned that kind of flexibility. I think a lot of new coaches or just coaches in general sometimes have a practice plan and they follow it to the minute or the 30 seconds that it allows for on stuff. It's okay to switch things up based on the mood in there and stuff like that. So.
Right. Yeah, I think obviously working on skills is super important, but changing it up or maybe not doing those stations for as long and getting into more competitive situations like a 3-on-3 or like a 3-on-2, like you mentioned, where they're kind of taking those skills and translating them into a game situation.
Yep.
It keeps kids interested, and they're playing a game, right? And they don't really realize that they're working on fundamentals while they're doing it.
Right. All right. So last question for you. If you're a parent out there watching Mite practice or a scrimmage or whatever, what's your advice on what to look for if your goal is to view the practice and make sure or identify whether your player is getting better?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that, the parents understand their kid's ability and what they should be doing and how they should be looking on the ice in terms of, are they working hard? Are they doing what they need to be doing, from an ability standpoint? Again, varying at every level. I mean, I don't know, mini mites, it can be something as simple as, wow, look at, Flynn. She can get all the way down the ice now without falling, or she can stop now with her skate, right? And it's just looking at little things, and maybe it's easier for some parents, more than others to understand like what improvement looks like as a skater or as a hockey player on the ice. But I think just basic things at that level is getting around the ice, like getting from station to station, getting up and down the ice, learning how to maybe start stopping, and then you get sticks in your hands and start understanding how to get a puck up and down the ice. So something as simple as that. When you get in kind of the rookie, intermediate, and then advanced Mite levels, fluidity of skating, I guess, if you can, if that's something that you're familiar with, and understanding how much better is my son getting at skating from a technical standpoint. Like, is he like, again, I could go into some detail, but it's like striding. Is he going backwards a little bit faster? Is his posture a little bit better? Is he handling the puck better? Is he learning how to pass? Like, is he making passes? So just basic fundamentals, I think, from there that they could be looking for improvement.
Yep.
Are they engaged? Is probably the simplest thing that you can be looking for.
Are they looking at the ceiling?
Yeah. Are they understanding are they doing what they need to be doing when it's their turn to go? Or are they wrecking a drill, or does a coach have to come tell them this is what you should be doing because you're not paying attention? That's probably the simplest thing.
And I think it's important to realize it's just starting out.
Yes.
And there's many more years, hopefully, in their hockey career, and it's a marathon, right?
As long as they're having, those should be the first questions that a parent should ask their child in the car on the way home. Number 1, did you have fun? Number 2, did you work hard? And number 3, were you a good teammate?
Yeah.
And if they can answer yes to all those, and then say, hey, do you think you got better today? You could ask that question and see how they react, or what was your favorite part, and those should be the questions they're asking, not why did you not do this, or something like that, right? Or those should be the questions they're asking at this level, because it's still about fun, about development as a player. It's just about being on the ice and just improving.
All right, that was 45 minutes, so I think we covered enough. There's obviously we could go for longer, but I really want to thank you for being able to do this, and we really appreciate everything you've done for WYZATA Youth Hockey and the Mite program. I know you got some years left in the Mite program, so
4 more,
and then getting into travel next year, and so you got a bunch of years left. So we're lucky to have you, and thanks again.
Thanks, Miles. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's great. I think I think the association does a really good job of not only developing the kids, but developing coaches. And I know you've done a lot in the last couple of years too, and the help with that. And it's been great. I can definitely see the improvement in kids versus when I was coaching my oldest at the mini mite level, watching those mini mites, and then watching mini mites, this year and getting into that. The improvement and the level of kids' ability has definitely improved in the past 5 years, in my opinion.
But even just saying that, which I appreciate you saying that, but we're talking about a 5-year window, right?
Yeah.
Where now we're starting to see it.
Yep.
So this is it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. So.
No, it doesn't. But luckily, there's a lot of good coaches in the association that have a lot of knowledge and that can teach the game properly.
Yep. All right. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions for Chris, please reach out, hockeyops@wayzatahockey.org, and we will see you next week. Thanks a lot.